Hello and welcome to a Checkmate chess d4 e6 knight to f3 and f5, the Dutch defense. These moves were played in 1912 between Edward Lasker on the white side and George-Allan Thomas on the black side. And yes, I did say Edward Lasker, not Emanuel Lasker. They actually were distant cousins, the legendary world champion Emanuel Lasker and Edward Lasker. But Edward Lasker first discovered that they were actually related after Emanuel had actually died, unfortunately. So why am I showing you this game? Well, I can say that in the Lasker family, Emanuel takes 99.99% of the credit. But Edward Lasker has this one game that has inscribed his name forever into the tablets of chess history and made him immortal, because this game features an absolutely stunning king hunt, and I hope you look forward to it because it is worth it. But for now, we must first get there. And to do that, we will go through the opening. We see knight to c3. This is a logical move, because with the Dutch defense and pawn to f5, black has taken a claim on e4. Now e4 should belong to white. So white counters this with a knight to c3, attacking e4, planning to play pawn to e4 and exchange these two and get the knight positioned on e4. Black says no, not that easy, and plays knight to f6, reinforcing his control over e4. But white is not done and plays a long, nice move here. Listen to this. Like so. Bishop to g5, pinning the knight to the queen, so that if the knight were to ever move, for instance to e4, black would lose the queen. The pin is broken by bishop to e7, but here white can give up the bishop pair with bishop takes knight, like so. And when black recaptures, like so, white is finally able to play pawn to e4. Now, the whole point of black's defense is not to allow pawn to e4, so of course he captures, like so, and white recaptures. So, what do you think the result of this opening has been? White just refute black's entire opening strategy. He did get e4 back after all. Well, not really, because he did give up his dark squared bishop in order to achieve this strategic goal, and the dark square bishop, when lost, cannot exercise control over the dark squares, so this dark squared bishop is unopposed. So white did get a nice knight in the center, but has less control over the dark squares for the remainder of the game. Black plays b6. The idea is clear. Play bishop to b7 in the what is known as the fianchetto position down here, with the triangular pawns serving as a bunker for this sniper bishop that can exercise its influence on this long, nice diagonal that is the longest diagonal this bishop could possibly be on. And it also exercises control and influence on d5 and e4, the two light squares in the center. So that is a very good strategical idea to fianchetto the bishop. Here, white plays a nice move, knight to e4, like so. And if you listen to my videos and you listen to my advice, you probably know that you are not supposed to move the same piece twice in the opening, unless, of course, you have a very good reason. And Edward Lasker was a good chess player, so what do you think his reason was? Why do you think he did it anyways? Well, it's because of this strong fianchetto idea of black's. He does not want to allow the fianchetto right away, and knight to e5 protects against this idea in a way. Because if black were to play bishop to b7, and can you see the problem? The problem is that in the Dutch defense, black plays the f-pawn out early, leaving him or her with a weak diagonal towards the king, and such a diagonal can be exploited by the queen. And let's take a look at what happens after queen to h5 check. Now usually this would not be much of a problem, because g6 blocks the check and attacks the queen. But with the knight on e5, we can capture this pawn, temporarily sacrificing the knight, because when black recaptures, we have a good move. And don't fall for the usual pattern of going for the rook, because in this particular position, black is actually defending this rook. So the correct move is just to capture the pawn, like so. This checks the king, no matter where the king goes to. Let's so goes to f8. He will lose the bishop, and he will be down 2 pawns and have an unsafe king, and the game is basically over. So that's why bishop b7 would be premature in this position, and that is why black played the best move, which is simply castles, like so. And why is this game so famous? Doesn't look like anything yet. I promised you an epic king hunt. So where is it? Where is the epic king hunt? It's coming. We're just building up the attack. Bishop d3 here is starting to look at the king on h7. There could be a check here sometime, maybe. Now bishop b7. Now that we can do it, let's do it. And we see queen h5. So, as you can see, the queen, the two knights, and the bishop have all been developed. They are actually all attacking the king here, the black king. And black is fine. He just have to play the correct sequence of moves. And maybe you can set the position up at home and see if you can figure it out. I can tell you what's not the correct move. The correct move is not queen to e7. And I know that this is not the correct move, because this is what George-Allan Thomas played, and Edward Lasker showed us exactly why that doesn't work. The deeper reason that I have chosen to share this game with you is that it illustrates a very useful idea in chess, a psychological idea, an idea about how you can maximize the output of your thought process. Maybe you've heard that the first thing you look for in a chess position is checks, to see if you have any checks. And the next thing you look for is captures, and the third thing you look for is threats. Why do you think that is? I can tell you. It's because those are the most forcing moves. Checks are the most forcing. Second most forcing are captures, and then threats. And why are forcing moves good? Is it because your opponent will make mistakes if you force them to play certain moves? Not really. Not really. Not really. It's because when you are calculating, when you are thinking about these wonderful 64 squares here, you want to have a good output. You want to think about the correct ideas, so you won't waste your time calculating all sorts of things. You know, what if I move this pawn here? What if I move that pawn here? Stuff that could be completely irrelevant to the situation. So first, what you do is you look at the most forcing moves to see if there's something there. And the reason it's so effective is because you can look a long way ahead if you only look at forcing moves. Here, Edward Lasker calculated checkmate in 7 moves, which sounds very impressive, and it was extremely beautiful, but actually not that difficult, because in every single position that he calculated, black only had one legal move, with one small exception. So are you ready? Without further ado, here it is. Queen That's right, we kick this little baby off with a queen sacrifice. So the king cannot escape here. The knight takes f7, so he has to capture the queen. And now we just go bananas with the checks. What would you play? What would you play? How about playing 2 checks in one move with a knight takes f6. Check from the knight and check from the bishop. So you cannot capture the knight with the g-pawn. Also, you cannot go to g8. And if you go to h8, there's a beautiful checkmate. Can you find it? Can you find it? Knight g6. Look at that. That's checkmate. So that doesn't work. So what can you do? Can I go to g6? That's covered by the knight. So you go also by the bishop. So you go to h6. And now we just try to, I'll give this position to you for your consideration. What do you want to play? Look for checks. See if you can find a check. Is there a nice check? Can you find a nice check? How about knight on e to g4? Check. That's nice because the king cannot go back. So the king cannot escape back into the castle. Can I go to h5? Can I go to g3? g6 I mean. So there's only one move. King to g5. And you can see we are weaving the mating net around the king. This square taken by this knight. This square taken by this knight. This square and this square taken by the bishop. So there's only these 2 squares. And if we play h4 check, there's only one square now. King to f4. Can you find a check? Because if you look, the king is in the same sort of trouble it has been in the whole time. No squares, no squares, no squares, no squares, no squares. And it's very nice in this game that white gets to use every single piece, even the rooks. You thought the rooks weren't developed. You thought the rooks weren't part of the attack. Well, they are. But let me show you how. g3, check. There's only one square. King to f3. And we have more checks. Bishop to e2, check. We cannot go back. There's no going back. The knight takes this square. The pawn takes this square. This knight is defended by both the knight and the bishop. It's only one square. King g2. And now it's time for the rooks. Because this knight defends h2. So we can play rook check, rook h2 check. It's very nice. There's only one square. King g1. And here there are 2 checkmates in one. And I actually think that Edward Lasker chose the less beautiful checkmate. He played king to d2, checkmate from the other rook. That was the last piece that hadn't given check, so of course I would have liked it a bit more, even though it's hard to criticize a game this beautiful, if he had instead castled. And many players asked him, and commentators asked him, why didn't you castle? And he actually gave a pretty funny explanation. He played king d2 checkmate because he was an engineer by training and profession, and as an engineer you are supposed to do everything the most efficient way, spending the least amount of energy, and by checkmating in this way he figured that he only moved a single piece instead of two, and he thought that was more efficient. What do you think? Which checkmate would you have preferred? Would you prefer? And how much would you like to destroy one of your friends in this manner? I think it's just such a beautiful game, and it shows, you know, what can happen out of the blue in chess. There was a queen sacrifice and a forced checkmate that just seemed to come out of nowhere. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you had a good and relaxing time on the channel. And I hope that I will see you in the next